It did not have to take a single test to know that the 9/11 cloud of dust was harmful. It should have issued a health warning right away. Even if dust contains no toxic chemicals, it's a respiratory hazard. EPA had the expertise to know that people with asthma...
Watching this hearing on C-SPAN, it's about the 9/11 responders and the people of New York, and Christine Todd Whitman, who was the EPA administrator. She gave the American people some bad advice, it seems like, and she's in trouble with the Congress. Not that the Congress is going to be really very responsible at getting anything done here. But I just had to reconsider Senator Fred Thompson and his little midnight spank of Michael Moore when he came on YouTube with his cigar, his fancy cigar in his mouth, and started making fun of Michael Moore for going to Cuba with a couple of those do-gooders, those do-gooder first responders who didn't have the proper health insurance and went with Michael Moore to Cuba on his little boat to make a little joke, because the little joke was even the prisoners in Guantanamo Bay had guaranteed health care. That's a little joke, you see. And unfortunately, it's a broma seria, una broma seria for the first responders, because they don't have access to the health care they need. Not only that, but it seems like they were lied to, but then again, that's not surprising. So, Fred Thompson comes on the YouTube with his big fat cigar. He's a tough guy. He's an old Paul with his big old cigar, like Bill Clinton, like Rush Limbaugh, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's kind of a symbol of their masculinity, that they like the big cigar. Fred even likes the Cuban cigars, which are illegal for me or my fellow Americans, but the big Cuban cigars taste better, and maybe they have the DR label, Fred, so you feel like you can smoke them without offending your conscience. And Fred make this movie about Michael Moore should think about documentary filmmakers being shocked by Fidel Castro. I'm sure Fred spends his nights worried about documentary filmmakers in Iraq. Oh yeah, that's Fred. He's got an ear to the documentary filmmaker community and their safety. But it was about health care. It was about the healthcare business. Fred was shuffling his papers. I don't have a paper right here. He's shuffling his papers and says, I don't have time to deal with you, Michael. I got this big fat cigar in my mouth and I'm an important man. So that's what we get to deal with Fred Thompson. Fred Thompson's a serious candidate, and I remember him. We're back to Watergate. He's a serious man. He might make a good president. Maybe if he played a doctor on television, he might care more about the health care of the American people. I don't know. Maybe he'd be willing to debate Michael Moore if he had any facts at his disposal. But here's a Fred Thompson fact for you. He'll say something like, don't you know in Canada, they have to wait often a month or 30 days or whatever they say, for an appointment with a specialist. Well, I got news for you, Fred. When was the last time you made an appointment for a specialist? I know you're a big old important senator, but I'll tell you, it takes more than a month right here in the suburbs. And that's because those little doctor's offices are full, Fred. And just think what it would be like if they all had health insurance. It would even be longer, Fred. So don't think that because it takes, by the way, Fred, down in Fidel's Cuba, it doesn't take a month to see a specialist. But let's just talk about Fidel for a second, Fred. You seem to love to spank the easy targets. You like to spank Michael, you like to spank Fidel, you probably like to spank Rosie O'Donnell, and who else? Who else would be good for you to spank?
And until our government takes action to
Who's
make
another
sure
documentary
that
filmmaker that you'd like to
Underground
spank?
Bureau
I bet you'd like to
never
spank
happens
Oliver Stone.
in any
Well,
future.
Fred, the thing about it is that Fidel had an operation that cut him open. Then they botched it, they had to cut him open again, and he's still standing, Fred. He quit smoking cigars some time ago, if I recall. And, you know, there's people been making fun of Fidel for years. David Brinkley used to make fun of Fidel. Where's David Brinkley now, Fred? Now, Fred, I heard you had cancer. Is that true? If that's true, I'm really sorry, Fred. But having cancer and then having a big cigar in your mouth as a little pose so you can get a little midnight raid on the public conscience and Britt Hume and Chris Matthews. You go #1 with Britt Hume and Chris Matthews, and next thing you know, you're #1 with the American people. That's a nice little prop, that little cigar. It doesn't do anything for anybody's health care, Fred. It's just a stupid little prop. And your buddy Brett Baer or whoever can put his little video, or you can put it on YouTube. That's the wave of the future, Fred. And I guess you get millions and millions. I think John Fun said you got 2 million hits. I don't know. Maybe you did. But did you talk about health care, or did you just make fun of some easy target with a silly prop of a cigar when you had cancer? That wasn't very responsible. So you may be a really funny guy. You may be a really good president. Now, I hope if you get elected president, you do something good for the country. But it's a bad start when the way you get up to #1 is through some ridiculous theatrical trick. It's almost as stupid as that Clinton thing with the Sopranos, you know. You know, it's just so pathetic. And Fred, I think we all know that the game's rigged, and I think we all know Hillary Clinton's got it in the bag. They moved the primaries, and now they're going to run a third party, and Lord, you know. But maybe you're just a movie actor. Maybe you'll be gone soon. But I hope you do debate Michael Moore. Or if you don't debate Michael Moore, I hope you put out another YouTube video where you're not smoking a cigar and looking like some fool with big things sticking out of his mouth. I hope you do something positive. And listen to some of those people that Michael Moore got responses from. Some of those healthcare nightmares. You know, healthcare nightmares happen. But it's pretty stupid in America. You know, healthcare happens, it ought to be, isn't it horrible that I got cancer? Not, isn't it horrible that I got cancer and I got to go fill out 700 forms. And by the way, eliminating forms means eliminating forms. It doesn't mean adding a whole new layer of electronic forms like old Newt Gingrich wants to do. You better believe it. By the way, I think that's where Ross Perot made his money, was in electronic forms with Medicare. It's big money. So, if there's big money in form filling out, you can bet Americans will make some big ducats doing some form filling out, and then what do you know? The price of health care goes higher, and the swimming pool in Connecticut gets bigger for Johnny Hartford Insurance. So anyway, Fred, it all ties in together. Maybe if you sat down with Michael and had a talk with Michael Moore, instead of making a silly video for Mort Kondracke and David Gergen and Bill Schneider, Glenn Eiffel, maybe instead, if you took it on seriously, tried to do something good, instead of playing a silly, stupid political game, maybe it might be kind of interesting. So anyway, that's my advice, Fred. I hope you win. Best of luck to you. Hope your health stays good. Good.